In the remote village of Whispering Pines, nestled deep within the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, there existed a darkness that few dared to speak of. It was said that the village was cursed, haunted by the malevolent spirits of witches who had been burned at the stake centuries ago. The villagers lived in fear of the forest that surrounded them, for they knew that within its depths, the witches' spirits still roamed. But there was one young woman, named Emily, who was not content to live in fear. She longed to uncover the truth behind the village's dark past. One moonlit night, Emily ventured into the forest, her heart pounding in her chest. The trees loomed overhead like ancient sentinels, their branches twisting and reaching out like gnarled fingers. As she made her way deeper into the forest, Emily began to hear strange whispers echoing through the trees. She could feel the eyes of unseen watchers upon her, and she knew that she was not alone. Suddenly, Emily stumbled upon a clearing where a circle of stones stood, surrounded by flickering torches. In the center of the circle, a group of women dressed in black robes danced and chanted, their voices rising in a haunting melody. Emily hid behind a tree, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched the witches' dark ritual. She knew that she should turn back, that she should flee from the forest and never return. But something compelled her to stay, to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within the darkness. As the ritual reached its climax, Emily felt a cold hand close around her wrist. She looked up to see the leader of the coven standing before her eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. "You should not have come here, child," the witch said, her voice like ice. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground, and now you must pay the price." With a wave of her hand, the witch cast a spell upon Emily, binding her to the forest for all eternity. Emily tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She could feel the darkness closing in around her, consuming her soul and trapping her within its grasp. And as the witch's laughter echoed through the forest, Emily knew that she would never escape from the darkness of Whispering Pines, for some curses were meant to last for all eternity. Deep within the heart of Blackwood Forest, where the trees loomed tall and ancient, there lay a darkness that was whispered about in fearful tones. It was said that in the heart of those woods, a coven of witches practiced their dark arts under the shadow of the moon. The townsfolk dared not venture too close to the forest's edge, for they knew of the witches' powers and the malevolent spirits that dwelled within. But there was one young woman, named Eliza, whose curiosity got the better of her. Eliza had always been fascinated by the stories of the witches. She would often spend hours listening to the old crones in the village square, telling tales of magic and mystery. Despite the warnings of her parents, she made up her mind to seek out the coven and learn their secrets. On a moonless night, when the darkness shrouded the forest like a thick cloak, Eliza made her way through the twisted trees, her heart pounding in her chest. The air grew colder with each step she took, and the sounds of the forest fell silent around her. Finally, she came to a clearing where a circle of ancient stones stood, surrounded by flickering torches. In the center of the circle, the witches danced, their voices raised in a haunting chant. Eliza hid behind a tree, watching in awe and fear as they called upon the powers of the night. But her curiosity soon got the better of her, and she stepped out from her hiding place, her eyes wide with wonder. The witches turned to look at her, their faces twisted with rage. "You dare to intrude upon our sacred ritual?" one of them hissed, her eyes gleaming with malice. Eliza tried to flee, but it was too late. The witches surrounded her, their dark cloaks billowing in the night breeze. With a wave of their hands, they cast a spell upon her, binding her to the forest for all eternity. From that day forth, Eliza was never seen again. Some say she still wanders the forest, a ghostly figure trapped between the world of the living and the dead. And the witches of Blackwood Forest continue to practice their dark arts, their power growing with each passing night. In the heart of the small town of Wicker Hollow, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there stood an old, decrepit mansion known as Blackthorn Manor. The townsfolk whispered of its dark history, of the witch who had lived there centuries ago, and the curse she had placed upon the land. Legend had it that the witch known as Morgana Blackthorn had been a powerful practitioner of the dark arts. She had come to Wicker Hollow seeking solitude, but her presence had brought nothing but misery to the town. One fateful night, the townsfolk had risen up against her, accusing her of bringing sickness and death to their community. In a fit of rage, Morgana had cursed the town, vowing that her spirit would never rest until she had claimed her revenge. For generations, the descendants of those townsfolk had lived in fear of Morgana's curse. They avoided Blackthorn Manor at all costs, for they knew that the witch's spirit still haunted its halls. But there was one young woman named Sarah who dared to defy the warnings of her elders. She had always been drawn to the mysterious mansion, and she longed to uncover its secrets. One moonlit night, Sarah made her way to Blackthorn Manor, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the trees seemed to whisper her name as she approached the old mansion. As she stepped through the broken gates, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She could sense the presence of something dark and malevolent lurking within the shadows. Ignoring the voice of reason that screamed in her mind, Sarah pressed on, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The walls seemed to close in around her, and she could hear the faint sound of whispers echoing through the darkness. Suddenly, Sarah found herself standing before a door that seemed to call out to her. With trembling hands, she pushed it open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts. But before she could take another step, she felt a cold hand close around her throat, lifting her off the ground. She looked up to see the ghostly figure of Morgana Blackthorn, her eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. "You dare to trespass in my domain," the witch hissed, her voice echoing through the empty halls. Sarah tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She could feel the life being drained from her body, consumed by the vengeful spirit of the witch. And as the darkness closed in around her, Sarah realized that some curses were meant to last for eternity.